Part 85. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 841. Chapter 841. Your brother is such a ruthless person. Li Laoer looked particularly complicated. He waved his hand to interrupt him and asked, "How many days have you been back? Do you already know that the Northern Expeditionary Army is about to win and return to the court? Did you and Ji also make meritorious service in the Hailan army?" Liu Yang nodded hurriedly. "We captured the Japanese pirate general. We were originally going to follow General Tang to Beijing to offer prisoners, but we heard that the princess was sick, so we asked for a boat to come back early. On the day I entered the city, I happened to hear the Northern Expeditionary Army reporting a victory, so Ji said he wanted to cause some trouble." "Nonsense." Li Zhensheng knew that his nephew was sensible, but he was even more distressed that his nephew had ruined his achievements in fighting back with a knife and a gun. He scolded, "Why can't you go home to discuss such a big matter first and decide it in private?" Li Laoer glanced at the pale old lady, fearing that she would be frightened, and said quickly, "Everyone, don't worry, Ji is no longer a child." Although this was done recklessly, it was not completely unprepared. Firstly, Wu Yan is a fugitive, and secondly, Ji accidentally killed someone while drunk. If they are put together in one place, the crime will definitely not lead to death. Let's sort out the relationship first and don't let Ji suffer in prison. In a few days, when Haiyan's army enters Beijing and Lord Marquis and Lao Si return, it will be easy to fish him out. At best, the merits and demerits are equal to each other. With this kid's ability, he will be able to kill himself in less than 2 years. Everyone felt a little relieved after hearing this. But in the final analysis, Ji is still in jail. Old Mrs. Li held on, called Tao Hongying and others, and quickly prepared bedding and jackets and trousers for Ji, as well as some dry food and broken silver that she was very hungry, and put them all into the package. Li Zhensheng and Li Laoer, together with the 3 brothers Liu Yang and Jiaran, all got on the carriage carrying packages. Liu Biatu and his wife arrived, and they only had time to take a look at their son before the carriage left in a hurry. Jiaran vaguely remembered that Lu Zong seemed to have some connections in Jingzayin, so he changed his carriage when he entered the city and went to Lu's house to find someone. Lu Zong took the last medicine a few days ago to recuperate his body, and the Li family was out of danger, so he returned to the city. Today, Jiasu happened to be coming over. The two were talking when they suddenly saw Jiaran coming over. They were very happy. Jiaran was not polite and explained the matter straight to the point, then bowed his hands and asked for help. Lu Zong and Jiasu were both shocked. Lu Zong said, "Jiaran, your brother is really a ruthless man. He is the queen's brother. He will be killed as soon as he is told." Jiasu also nodded vigorously, "If we go back hundreds of years, there won't be such a fierce person." Jiaran smiled bitterly. Ji drank and hit harder. "I didn't expect young Master Wu to beat him so hard." Lu Zong and Jiasu are both smart people, so they didn't say anything more. Lu Zong called a guard and asked a few questions. This guard has a cousin who is the prison chief in Jingzhaoyin prison. "This is great, the county magistrate is not as good as taking charge now. With such a person taking care of him, he is not afraid that Jie will suffer hardship in prison." They set off immediately and soon arrived at Jingzayin. Li Zhensheng and Li Laoer have just visited the governor, sent generous gifts, and obtained a promise that Jie will not be tortured to extract a confession. Actually, even if they didn't take care of it, Jingzayin wouldn't bother Jie. From the moment he knew Jie's identity, Fuyin understood that this matter was a dispute between the Li family and the Wu family. One is a new member of the dynasty, a popular person in front of the emperor. The other is the mother clan of the queen. Although she was imprisoned, the queen has not been abolished. Who knows when she will rise again? He can't afford to offend anyone. Hand it honestly and impartially, take it if there is any benefit, and forget it if there is no benefit. When the fight between the gods on both sides comes to an end, this matter will naturally be over, the winter days are short, and the sun will be covered by clouds before it sets on the western mountain, and the sky and earth will become dark. Jingzayan prison, because it was built underground, entered the dark night early. Wooden thick pieces of wood stood up one by one, separating small spaces. There are 3 or 5 prisoners in each space. There are thieves, robbers, and ruffians who molest women. In short, the reasons for coming in are different, but now the status is exactly the same, they are all prisoners. In the farthest cell, a young man in black rubbed his fists, then raised his foot and kicked a strong man into a pile of rotten hay. The strong man's hair was messy, his clothes were ragged, and he bared his teeth fiercely. He looked like he was about to pounce forward at any time, but he was also a little afraid. Not far away, 3 or 5 jailers hugged their shoulders and were laughing and watching the fun. One of the jailers said, "Who is this kid? He can work hard. You've scared the thorns here in a few seconds, isn't he a gangster?" The companion next to him gave him a tug and said, "You just changed your shift, haven't you heard about it yet? This guy is really powerful, he kills people in the street after drinking." Killing people, the jailer was surprised and said with a smile, "No wonder, he is such a ruthless person. I don't know what his family does, this case is not a small one, we may make another small fortune." The others also laughed, "We were thinking about this too, but this guy was dressed in ordinary clothes, and he was searched when he was locked up. He didn't have anything valuable, so maybe he doesn't have much money. We're not afraid of oil and water. What do we do? We're just oil presses," a jailer joked and said with a wink, "Brother, money has been tight recently. Why don't you show your dignity and let me eat from a bowl alone?" "Forget it, who is not in a hurry," his companion gave him a tug, unwilling to give up the opportunity to make a fortune. At this moment, a skinny little old man walked in. The jailers laughed after hearing the joke and quickly saluted him to please him. "Boss, why are you here? Aren't you working the evening shift?" "Yes, if the boss needs anything, just give him an order." The little old man waved his hand to signal everyone to be silent, then he glanced inside the prison, and finally pointed at the man in black who met him and said, "That man is a hero who killed Japanese pirates in the south. This crime was also an accident. Their family is in, the superiors have given me a message asking us to pay some attention to it. Please be careful and don't reach out carelessly, you may cause trouble for yourself. They will send something over in a while. Don't stop it. It will definitely benefit you." The jailer's eyes were spinning wildly when they heard this, and they were extremely curious. A jailer, who was usually thick-skinned, stepped forward and asked with a smile, "Boss, please tell me a few more words. Who is this kid? If you brothers know this, you can prescribe the right medicine for him." The little old man looked around and said in a low voice, "The man who was kicked to death in the alley earlier has been identified. He is the young master of the Wu family who is on the run." The eldest young master of the Wu family. Everyone gasped and stared for a long time without saying anything. Even though he was a fugitive, he was still an uncle of the state. He was beaten to death like this. Everyone looked at the man in black with complicated expressions. He was afraid that he might not survive. As a result, the little old man added another sentence. "The man who hurt people is the son of Zhongshanbo and the grandson of the Li family of Sujintan. He has been killing Japanese pirates in the Hailan army and has just returned to the new capital." Li family. The jailers shouted in unison, almost biting their tongues in surprise. Before they could ask any more questions, 2 more soldiers came in from outside, both of them smiling happily. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 842. Chapter 842 Brothers meet. "Boss, come and see, "There's something delicious to eat tonight," a jailer shouted. The other one also jumped down the stairs in a few steps, and then waved behind him, "Come in quickly." Everyone heard the sound and looked over. 3 guys who looked like waiters came in, each carrying 2 food boxes in their hands. The aroma was faintly emanating from the food box, and it became more and more obvious in the dark and airtight prison. The guy at first was dressed the same as the other 2, but his back was very straight. He put down the food box, put his hands in his hands and said with a smile, "Everyone, you have been busy all day and have worked hard. I prepared 10 good dishes with my own hands and brought them to you to simply fill your stomach. Please don't dislike it." "Haha, I don't mind it." "Don't dislike it?" The jailers are not stupid, so they can naturally see that this guy has an extraordinary status, and they don't dare to offend him, so they just smile and say a few polite words. The prison boss nodded and said, "Today, a new person suddenly came to the cell. The food prepared in advance is not enough. Could you please help me, brother, to give some food to the new person?" "Yes." The waiter put down the big food box in his left hand, patted it casually and said, "There are some things under this food box to make you hungry. I hope the officials like it." After saying that, he cupped his hands, picked up the snack box in his right hand, and went inside. The remaining 2 waiters immediately stepped forward and started to get the food out. Soon, the dinner table was filled with plates. Chicken, fish, meat, eggs, and 2 kinds of seafood are simply delicious and delicious. The prison boss dismissed the man and opened the last food box with his own hands. In addition to the white flour steamed buns on top, there is also a layer of silver tassels on the bottom, 5 liang each. The jailer's eyes were burning, and they all looked at the cell leader. The prison boss gave 1 to each of them, and stuffed the remaining 2 into his arms. Everyone looked at each other and felt happy. They quickly got together and started eating in a lively manner. In the corner room of the cell, the clerk also delivered the food box. The man in black who was sitting leaning on the wooden fence turned his head and shouted in surprise, "Second brother, why are you here and pretending to be a buddy?" Needless to say, this guy is a family favorite. He rolled his eyes angrily and really wanted to knock his brother all over his head. "You still have the nerve to say that the whole family is almost turned upside down because of you. You were naughty when you were a child, but now you are so old, you still haven't made any progress." Jie Huan gritted his teeth angrily, but still opened the food box and took out the things quickly. The wooden fence is a bit narrow, so plates can't be put in. Fortunately, the food Jiawen brings are roasted chicken, grilled skewers, and steamed buns, which are easy to pick up and eat without plates. Ji chuckled, took the food and ate it. It has been more than half a day since he committed the crime, and he was already hungry. Jie Huan felt a little distressed when he saw his younger brother devouring his food. Just when he was about to give some advice, a man suddenly came out of the rotten hay in the corner, startling him. Fortunately, Ji was alert and didn't put down the steamed bun in his hand. He only kicked the rotten grass spirit back with 1 kick. The rotten grass spirit was about to pounce on him, so Ji threw him a steamed bun and half a roast chicken, and the rotten grass spirit sat cross-legged and began to eat. Jie Huan was dumbfounded. He pointed at the rotten grass spirit, looked at his younger brother and asked, "Who is this?" "I don't know," Ji replied nonchalantly, "he was here when I came over. He's very good at fighting, so I'm going to let him practice with me in the past few days, so that his bones won't get rusty and I won't have the energy to kill the Japanese pirates when I go back south." When Jie Huan heard this, he became very angry. He couldn't help but reached in and slapped his brother. "You are already 20, can you use your brain when doing things? You are really happy, just kill someone. Come in, do you still remember that my grandma is 60 years old? I can't stand being so scared by you. There has been no news about Jiexi and Jian. Grandma has been sick several times because of her worries. But you came back to cause trouble. Hearing the word grandma, Ji felt guilty and asked in a low voice, "Is grandma okay? There is also a sister." Jie Huan grabbed a handful of meat skewers, stuffed them into his hand, and said angrily, "Everything is fine. You are not filial, and we are different from you." Ji felt relieved and ate the skewers with great satisfaction and joy. When he was full, Jie Huan took out some things from under the food box and stuffed them in. He said, "My sister prepared these things for you. There are daggers and medicinal powders. You can keep them for self-defense. Besides, from now on, your meals will be delivered from the restaurant, so don't touch anything in the prison." After saying that, he handed another flat kettle in. Ji's eyes flashed, and his family's unexpected caution made him more curious and worried. He lowered his voice and asked, "Second brother, tell me the truth, why did the Wu family bully our family? Is my sister really safe?" Jie Huan didn't want him to worry about it, so she motioned for him to come over and whispered a few words. Ji cursed at that time. If I had known this was the case, I should have hanged that from the Wu family on the wall and beheaded him alive. Okay, just be honest. Jie Huan was startled, fearing that this younger brother would do something if his brain got hot. Even though he was killing Japanese pirates in the south, making meritorious deeds and becoming a general, that was in front of outsiders. As long as he returns home, he is still the same reckless and brave naughty boy. My uncle and his uncle want me to tell you, just wait and see. The Hailan army has sent someone to deliver a message. General Tang will come to Beijing as soon as possible. You just need to take care of yourself and don't worry about the rest. Jie Huan was afraid that something would go wrong, so he took the trouble to give instructions. He didn't feel relieved until Jie nodded. On the other side, the jailers had almost finished eating, and the guys were clearing away the dishes. Jie Huan could only wave his hands, quickly went forward to join them, and then exited the prison. Ji was so angry that he wished he could change to another prison and be locked up with the Wu family. Unfortunately, this is simply not possible. The rotten grass spirit had a full stomach and gained strength, and began to compete with Ji for the dry land at the door. The two of them were in a small prison, going back and forth, and the fight was lively again. Early on the next morning, just as it was getting dark, the cyclamen food box was delivered again. This time it was millet and red date porridge, pork buns with chopped green onion, and 4 side dishes. The millet porridge is golden and sticky, the steamed buns are soft and plump, and the side dishes are salty and crispy. As usual, the small part was sent to the prison, and the larger part was left on the jailer's table. The jailers were rubbing their sleepy eyes, holding steamed buns in their mouths, and drinking porridge. It was all a joke. This life is so enjoyable, I'm looking forward to the person inside staying there for a few more days. Haha, that's right, this is cyclamen's food. It is said that even if you have money, you may not be able to eat it. One person couldn't help but sigh, and lowered his voice and said, "They say that the Li family protects the calf. We just heard it before, but now it seems that this is really a good saying. The man inside killed the uncle of the state, and if he put it in someone else's house, he would have discarded it long ago, for fear of causing harm to the family. But this guy is not willing to suffer a little injustice even if he eats or wears clothes. It's really enviable." Bystanders also looked around. "I just sent another package in, it seems to be quilts and new coats and trousers, right?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 843. Chapter 843, People's hearts are kind, and their hearts are sunny. Yes, I saw it too. An old jailer smiled and told everyone, "We use people's money to eliminate disasters for others, but now we have another one who can eat people and have a short tongue, so everyone is aware of it. Everyone nodded in understanding. After a while, several new prisoners who entered the prison were and given the routine 30-30 killing stick. But when they passed the innermost cell, they passed by. The jailers didn't know that there was a man in the Zinduli palace who shared their sentiments about eating people and being short-tongued. Mr. Yi looked at the 2 baskets of fresh fruits in front of him. The pears are yellow, the fruits are bright red, the oranges are big and round, and there are even a few sweet and attractive peaches. He couldn't help but laugh, and asked the young eunuch, "Is this sent from Broken Gold Beach?" The little pinched the banknote in his sleeve, smiled and saluted and replied, "Yes, steward, Uncle Lee personally delivered it to the palace gate. My uncle said that the princess was worried that you hadn't picked fruits for a long time, so she picked 2 baskets herself." As he spoke, the little couldn't help but swallow his saliva. I have to say that the Lee family is really good at growing this fruit. There are often fruits brought from the south as tribute in the palace, but they are never as fresh and sweet as those from the Lee family. Mr. Yi casually stuffed an orange into the little eunuch's hands and cursed with a smile, "Go away and look outside carefully. I'll offer a plate to the emperor." The little responded and ran out. Manager Yi thought for a while, collected 2 baskets of fruits and took them to the tea room. Then he washed 2 pears with his own hands, cut them into pieces, put them on a plate, and sent them to the imperial study room. The emperor was rubbing his eyebrows, feeling very irritated. Just now, someone from Cunning Palace came to report that the queen was about to hit the wall and commit suicide, but was rescued. If it wasn't for the previous dynasty, he really wished he could change to another queen immediately. At this time, Manager Yi brought up the fruit plate. He picked up the toothpick and inserted a piece of pear into his mouth. It was sweet and moist, and his throbbing brain immediately felt much better. After eating 3 pieces in a row, the emperor stopped and asked, "Is this from Broken Gold Beach?" Manager Yi quickly stepped forward with a smile and replied, "Yes, Your Majesty, the princess saw that you haven't let anyone pick fruits for a long time, and was afraid that you would forget to pick fruits when you were busy, so she picked 2 baskets and sent them to you. The old slave saw that the pears were moist and it was a good time to eat them, so he cut them into a plate for you." The emperor nodded and couldn't help but sigh and said, "The Li family and the Wu family are in such trouble, and the queen has to live and die, so no one can worry. The Wu family has already been imprisoned, and the boy from the Li family actually killed Wu Yan again, and even made an excuse that he missed it while drunk. No one can see that he did it on purpose, it's just adding to the chaos." Manager Yi stepped forward, bowed and poured tea for the emperor, and said with a smile, "What the emperor said is that the boy from the Li family is really reckless. But speaking of it, he is still too young. When the old slave was as old as him, he often fought with the young eunuch, but in the final analysis, the old slave does not have the ability of this boy from the Li family. I heard that he was born with supernatural powers. He had only been in the Hailan army for a few years, but he had already killed more than 300 or 400 Japanese pirates. General Tang wished he could treat him as his own son. This time I went to Beijing to offer prisoners. General Tang also wanted to ask for credit for this kid. If I knew that this kid got into trouble just a few days after he came back, General Tang would be furious." The emperor was curious when he heard this and asked, "I have seen the strength of the 4th son of the Li family. This boy should be the son of Uncle Zhongshan, right? He has inherited this good ability." General Manager Yi agreed, "Yes, Your Majesty, I heard that the ancestors of the Li family did not have this ability. I don't know why, starting from General Li Si, there is a natural in one generation. Moreover, both General Li Si and this little general with a sense of family justice actually joined the military camp to fight for the country. In this way, the emperor is blessed with great blessings, and Tianwu is destined to flourish, so that such a fierce general comes to the world." The emperor was so happy that he no longer had any irritation in his expression. He said with a smile, The northern expedition has also made great achievements this time. Li Laozi is the #1 general under my cousin, so he will definitely reward him again. It's thanks to the emperor's blessing. Manager Yi picked up the silver toothpick and pierced the snow pear and handed it to the emperor. He said with emotion, "It's a pity for the young General Ji Yi. If he hadn't made any mistakes, he would have been rewarded with General Li Si. It makes people jealous." The emperor was about to nod, but his eyes suddenly flashed. He then put down the toothpick, with a look of enlightenment on his face, and said, no wonder this kid wants to kill people in the street. Venting anger for the family is fake, but is the real thing." Mr. Yi didn't seem to understand, and his face was filled with confusion, which made the emperor laugh and curse again. "Okay, you old guy, stop pretending, you act like I don't know, you are trying to coax me in different ways." Mr. Yi quickly smiled to please him, saluted and replied, "Your Majesty, even if I can't think of it now, I will always think of it later." This old slave just said a few unnecessary words. But speaking of it, the Li family is really loyal to the emperor. Even if they want the emperor to eat a few more bites of a piece of fruit, the old slave can't help but favor the Li family. After all, the emperor is my god. Whoever treats the emperor well will be treated well by me. As he spoke, he knelt down. The emperor felt sour and warm in his heart. Except for his cousin, this old has always been by his side since he was a child, never leaving him. "Okay, get up quickly, I'll say a few words to you," and you took the opportunity to perform. The emperor raised his hand and motioned for Mr. Yi to get up. He thought for a while and said, "Tell Jing Zheyan that he will be detained first and not interrogated until Helan's army arrives in Zindu." Manager Yi carefully took a look at the papers on the table. Several of them were petitions to deal with the boy from the Li family. He tentatively asked, "Your Majesty, when those in the court heard about it, will they?" The emperor snorted coldly, threw a few booklets into Mr. Yi's arms, and said, "Give these booklets to the Li family, and let the Li family find a way to suppress these clowns." "Yes, Your Majesty." Manager Yi accepted the offer and quickly retreated. Of course, Manager Yi could not leave the palace to deliver things in person, so it was Eunuch Feng who made this trip again. Eunuch Feng is quite happy to run errands. Because, the Li family rewards very generously. More importantly, the Li family never looked down upon him, a half-disabled person. Every time they talked to him, they treated him like a relative or friend, warm and cordial. Unlike other people, every time they face him, they smile all over their face, turn their heads and want to spit in disgust, as if he is some kind of dirty thing. People's hearts are kind, and their hearts are sunny. The Li family is the rare kindness and sunshine in his career. When leaving the palace, he saw a group of people walking in front of him from a distance, but Eunuch Feng didn't pay much attention. But what he didn't know was that this group of people was also heading for Li's house. It's just that when he went to the relief department, others went to Broken Gold Beach. In the yard of Li's house, Mrs. Wen was playing with the fabrics at home with Mrs. Li. She also listened to the old man's chatter to prevent him from getting bored. Mrs. Li pulled out a piece of sapphire blue material and said, "Let's use this material to make a robe for Ji Yi. He will come out in a few days, and he will definitely follow Jiren and the others into the city. We don't want him to dress like a gangster again." Mrs. Wen couldn't help but smile and said, "Auntie, let's change the material. This sapphire blue is more suitable for a boy with fair skin like my brother. Ji Yi got tanned at the beach, and wearing sapphire blue will make him look even darker." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 844. Chapter 844. An Unexpected Visitor. Really, Mrs. Li quickly put down the royal blue satin and went to check the other materials. Jiyan came in from the outside with a plate of dried meat, smiled and stuffed a piece into the mouths of both Grandma and Mrs. Wen. "Grandma, Sister-in-law, how do you like it? My mother and third uncle are still working on it. It's 5 or 6 kilograms. I'll ask my second uncle and the others to take it into the city tomorrow and deliver it to my brother-in-law. This butcher shop is very hungry. If it is inconvenient for my sworn brother to eat there, I can just chew 2 pieces for half a day. Old Mrs. Lee snorted coldly. It's a credit to him being in jail. The family has to prepare extra food for him. That's what she said, but she still added, make more spicy ones, and the family's loyalty is strong. Mrs. Wen and Jiyan couldn't help laughing when they heard it. Just then, Zhao Yuru came in from outside and said with a smile, don't worry, Mom, most of them are spicy, and only a small part is sweet. Such a big thing happened at home, so it was natural to send news to Luoan. Li Laosan and Zhao Yuru rushed back last night. Li Laosan took over the chores at home and in the village, leaving his 2 brothers too busy in the city with peace of mind. Zhao Yuru stayed at home, taking care of the elderly and children, and helping Tao Hongying. Old Mrs. Li pulled Zhao Yuru to sit down and shouted good news again, go and ask your mother to come in and rest for a while, she has been busy all morning. The good news was answered, and just as he was about to go out, a little maid ran in quickly, Master, the messenger from the second village said that a young lady brought someone to visit the princess, but she refused to tell her name, and only said that she was the third in line. Everyone was confused, but Jiyan's mind was quick and he immediately guessed the identity of the visitor. After thinking about it, he said, ask Erkan to let people in, don't neglect the etiquette. Yes, Princess. The little maid hurriedly ran back. Old Lady Li asked, Fu Niuer, who is here? Jiyan replied, Grandma, she should be the third princess in the palace. 3 princesses? Everyone was shocked. Zhao Yuru frowned and asked, what is the third princess doing here at this time? Does she want to raise an army to punish her? Orange Mrs. Li and Mrs. Wen also looked bad. No matter what you think, nothing good will happen if the 3 princesses come to visit. Jiyan smiled and comforted, Grandma, don't worry. This is our home. No matter what her purpose is, she will never be bullied. Mrs. Li and others nodded and relaxed their brows slightly. Soon, the third princess brought 2 nuns into the Li family yard. Perhaps she didn't want outsiders to know that the third princess was dressed very ordinary, and even wore a large cloak, covering her head and face tightly. When the Li family saw her like this, they treated her as an ordinary guest, with simple courtesy and tea and snacks. The third princess was actually not angry, but instead smiled to welcome everyone. This has to make Jiyan secretly sigh. She is not the only one who has grown up. The third princess has also lost the pride and domineering she had when she was a child, and finally has some dignity. Old Mrs. Li is old and the senior one in the Li family. She is accompanying the princess to greet her. Why is it cold in winter? Are there many people doing New Year shopping in Zindu? What kind of snacks does the princess like to eat? How careful are you in making your own snacks? The third princess patiently responded with a few words, but finally couldn't hold on any longer. She turned to Jiyan and said, Sister Jiyan, can you say a few words alone? Jiyan secretly shook goosebumps when she heard her calling her so close. Okay, princess, come to my room and sit for a while. After saying that, she was going to lead the third princess to the backyard. Mrs. Li, Zhao Yuru and others were worried and wanted to stop him when they got up, but when Jiyan waved his hand, they had no choice but to stay. The third princess, Su, wanted to show that she had no ill intentions and left the 2 nuns in the front yard. The good news led the third princess all the way to the backyard and into her apartment. Jiyan has been staying here these days to accompany her grandma. Therefore, on the big kong where she usually lives, there are also the travel notes she often reads, a box full of snacks, and even a plate of golden red oranges. 2 pots of blooming camellias were placed on the wall sill by the window, emitting a faint fragrance. The big Kong was heated up and covered with brand new straw mats. There are two thick cotton cushions placed next to the Kong table, embroidered with a simple and funny big white bear, and two doll cats leaning on the side. The third princess looked around carefully, with a flash of envy in her eyes. Her bedroom was much larger and many times more gorgeous than this room, but it was not as comfortable and warm as this one. Jiyan invited her to sit down and peeled an orange for her with his own hands, but did not take the initiative to say a word. The third princess took the orange and was embarrassed for a long time, but she still said bravely, "Sister Jiyan, I came today, to ask you to do me a favor." Jiyan pretended to be stupid. "The princess is joking, I am just a little girl from a peasant family. You are the darling daughter of heaven, your majestic princess. I am a humble person, so I'm afraid I won't be able to help the princess." The third princess was anxious and said quickly, "No, you can definitely help. My father likes you more than me. If you help me to plead for mercy, my father will definitely let it go." Halfway through her words, she suddenly saw Jiyan's cold face and couldn't speak any more. Jiyan put down the tea bowl and asked, "Princess, why didn't you say anything? I'm afraid the princess also knows how difficult it is to ask me to do this favor, right?" The third princess bit her lips and said bravely, "I know that my mother and my grandfather's family have annoyed your family, but they were just impulsive. Besides, you are not hurt, so can't you be magnanimous and forgive them?" "Humph," Jiyan sneered angrily, almost dropping the tea bowl, and asked, "Princess, since you said that, you must also know what your mother and the Wu family have done, right? The princess has read books for so many years, can't she still not be able to write 2 words of Mingli? Put yourself in my shoes, would you forgive someone if they wanted to do this to you?" The third princess rarely bowed her head for the sake of her mother. When she was forced to question her, she lost her temper and said loudly, "Why don't you forgive me? My mother and the Wu family are just trying to scare you. Aren't you still alive? Your family has already killed my cousin, so why bother killing them all? Is it so difficult to ask you to go to my father and say a few words without pursuing any further investigation? I promise that my mother and my grandfather's family will never bully you or cause trouble to your family in the future, okay?" "No," Jiyan was also annoyed and slammed the table directly, "they want to kill me, why should I plead for them? They deserve whatever they suffer. Whoever asked them to do bad things means that evil will be punished. Also, I thought that the princess would be more discerning as she got older, but I didn't expect that she would still be just as stupid. Are you the emperor's daughter? Why haven't you inherited any of the emperor's wisdom?" "You," the third princess' face turned livid after being scolded, and she stood up and was about to get angry. At this time, the door of the house was suddenly kicked open, and Mrs. Li led Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru in from the outside. Jiyan was startled when he saw clearly what Mrs. Li was holding, and the third princess even weakened her legs. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 845. Chapter 845. The most shameless person in the world. What are you going to do? The third princess wished she had wings and could fly out quickly, but she didn't have any strength in her legs, so she could only shout calmly. It turns out that Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and Zhao Yuru, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, each hold a porcelain bowl in their left hand and a sharp knife in their right hand. Mrs. Li sneered and said, "Don't be afraid, princess, we are not going to kill the princess." "Then what are you doing with the knife? You are presumptuous." "I am a princess, how brave are you?" The third princess heard that she was not going to be killed, and finally found some courage and asked sternly. Old Mrs. Li took 2 steps forward, approached the princess, and said, "I just heard a few words outside. Did the princess force our Fu Niu to plead for the queen and the Wu family? The queen and the Wu family wanted to kill my Fu Niu before and make her suffer. If they are released, there is no way they will harm my Funiur again. Why did the princess let them out? I thought about it carefully. I'm afraid the princess is still thinking about getting the bowl of blood. I am useless as a grandmother. I cannot protect my Funiur and I cannot disobey the princess's orders, but I can die for our Funiur. I will cut out my own heart in front of the princess, put a bowl of blood in it, and ask the princess to take it back. From now on, you, the Wu family, will no longer think about harming our Funiur. After saying that, she raised the sharp knife and pointed it at her chest. The third princess turned pale with fright and gritted her teeth to prevent herself from screaming. Jiyan was also very frightened, fearing that grandma would hurt her. Grandma, put down the knife quickly. She was about to rush forward, but Tao Hongying glared at her and stopped her in her tracks. Tao Hongying took 2 steps forward and stood beside the old lady. She raised the porcelain bowl in front of the princess with an expressionless face and said, "Princess, if 1 bowl is not enough, then 2 bowls. I also cut out the heart and brought it back to the princess." And me, Zhao Yuru also stepped forward with a stern face and also raised the bowl, 3 bowls of blood and 3 lives, can the princess be satisfied? After saying that, the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law all raised their knives. Whether intentionally or not, the tips of the knives were pointed at the third princess. The third princess was dazzled by the bright sword light, as if her own blood would be splashed on the spot in the next moment. She couldn't bear it any longer, and while stepping back, she trembled and said, "No, I don't want it. You have misunderstood." Finally retreating to the door, she turned around and ran out. Her 2 nuns heard the noise and rushed into the backyard. The third princess shouted to them frantically, "Let's go, go back to the palace. I want to go back to the palace." The 2 nuns did not dare to delay, and almost half dragged the princess out in a hurry and got into the carriage. Jiyan didn't care how the third princess left. She quickly snatched the knives from grandma and the others, for fear that they would them back again. "Grandma, mother, aunt, what are you doing? What if you hurt yourself?" Jiyan was really anxious. Although she knew her family was trying to scare the third princess, there were no eyes on the knife. What if she accidentally touched it? Old Mrs. Lee breathed a long sigh of relief, sat down on the Kong table, and cursed, "It's not the fault of that stupid princess. I was afraid that she would bully you, so I wanted to eavesdrop a few words, but she turned out to be so shameless that she actually asked you to intercede with the queen and the Wu family. Her mother gave birth to her in a donkey pen, and she was kicked by a donkey when she was born. She has a melon-shaped head and looks big, but she has no brains." Thanks to how she said it, if it weren't for the fact that she is a princess, I would have wanted to put her in a cesspit to wake up. Tao Hongying also scolded, "Isn't it? You can eat people's food but not on them. When the Marquis and Lao Si come back, tell them, why are you still killing the barbarians? You can just stay at home. Or, marry this stupid princess to a barbarian and keep her for less than 3 years before the barbarians destroy the country." And heard the good news, I couldn't laugh or cry. Grandma and my wife were really angry at the moment, and they were scolding them with all their might and without hesitation. Jiyan helped Zhao Yuru, whose legs were weak, to sit down. Seeing that her face was pale with fear, she quickly advised her, "Auntie, don't be afraid. The princess has been scared away and will definitely not come again in the future." Zhao Yuru was really desperate just now, but now she slows down and feels a little weak. She patted her niece's hand and whispered, "Funiur, you should not be afraid. Sister-in-law is an adult and she should protect you. If this princess comes again from now on, you should pretend to be sick and stop seeing her. Every time you see her, nothing good will happen." "Okay, I'll listen to my uncle." Jiyan hugged third auntie's wife and rubbed her face so close that she finally started laughing. Actually, even if grandma and the others didn't come, she would still have a way to teach the third princess a lesson. But it feels so good to be protected and loved by family members. She ran to hug my mother again, played coquettishly with her grandma for a long time, and gave her a big kiss. Tao Hongying saw that her daughter did not look like she was in trouble, so she clicked her forehead and said, "You are just a rat carrying a gun. That idiot bullied you just now, why don't you know how to scold him back?" There was no one in the room at the time, and even if you were off, no one else could tell it was your fault. Remember, next time, learn to splash a little. Your grandma and I can't stay with you forever and protect you everywhere. Why not? Jiyan smiled, hugged her and shook her. From now on, I will take my grandma, mother and aunt with me wherever I go. Yes, even if you get married, you still have to tie up our waistbands, Tao Hongying replied dumbfounded, and then looked around for a sharp knife. Where is my knife? It's waiting to be used in the kitchen. I just stewed a pot of sauerkraut and am waiting to remove the bones and meat. Jiyan took a step away, revealing the sharp knife thrown under the edge of the bed. Tao Hongying noticed it immediately, picked it up, and said happily, "It's good that I didn't lose it anymore. These are the most convenient ones I use." After saying that, she took Zhao Yuru back to the front yard. Jiyan stayed with grandma for a while and took 2 ripe bananas from the space for grandma to eat. Then he took a bunch of medicinal powder and daggers to show off to grandma, saying a few words from time to time. "Give third brother a bottle of this powder. If he is in prison and he doesn't like it, if he sprinkles a little bit of it, even a cow will be able to get rid of it immediately. This is an antidote. It can detoxify most of the poisons in the world. The food that third brother eats is sent by our restaurant, so there is definitely no problem, but we must be prepared just in case. This is powder for injuries. Sprinkle a little on any injury to quickly stop bleeding and pain." I also gave third brother a bottle. Old Mrs. Lee was eating bananas and listening to her granddaughter's nagging. She knew that her granddaughter was comforting her and not wanting her to worry too much. She sighed softly in her heart. The children have grown up, are filial and sensible, and are willing to support each other. Maybe she can really let go and no longer have to worry about it every day. The cold wind blew through the window, and I secretly listened to the conversation between my grandfather and grandson. I was so frightened by the poison of this medicine and that I wandered up to the roof, and almost lost my soul again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 846. Chapter 846. Congratulations to the Go family. I don't know when a young man was lying here, with his hands behind his head and a piece of grass in his mouth, looking very leisurely. It's a pity that he underestimated the power of winter. His face turned blue due to the cold and his nose looked like a carrot. He was really embarrassed. Dongmei came out of the kitchen with a pot of bean sprouts. When she saw Muju coming in from the outside sneezing, she smiled and said, "Xiao Mu, where are you coming from? Why aren't you wearing a big coat?" Muju smiled and replied, "A vicious dog entered the village. I went to check it out. Thank you, Aunt May, for caring. I will go back and put on my coat right now." Aunt May nodded and said, "Go to the Kong to warm up for a while, and eat some fruit to cushion your stomach. I'll go next door to deliver a pot of bean sprouts, and we'll eat when we get the food back." "Okay," Muju responded and entered the house. In the kitchen of Li's house next door, soup was bubbling in a big iron pot. I made bone soup early in the morning, poured in half a basin of shredded pickled cabbage, and simmered it for more than an hour. At this time, add frozen tofu, bone-in meat removed from the stick bones, and then cut the cooked pork belly into thin slices and put it on top, and it will be a high-end version of the butchered pork dish. It's a pity that the pig was not killed, otherwise it would have been a perfect match with freshly stuffed blood sausage. Place it in a large bowl while it is hot, Then crush a little of the half-roasted chili peppers in the stove and sprinkle it in. That fragrant, spicy, and sour flavor can heat up your internal organs and even your bones. If you don't like chili pepper, you can also pound garlic and add some soy sauce, which is also delicious. Shui Yun had nothing to do and came over to help. He was scooping out the butchered vegetables from the big pot. Uncle Zhao and other old men gave a basin as a gift. Madame Hui, her mother, and her son were eating at the village chief's house, and they also gave a basin as a gift. Lu Yang came back from a long journey and was at home today. He also gave me a basin. The Wen family and Ye family next door. A big pot of pig-killing vegetables looks like a lot, but after dividing it up, only half of the pot is left, but it is enough for the family. Dong Mei went into the hall to talk to Tao Hongying. When she mentioned going to the city tomorrow, Tao Hongying said, "The Marquis is coming back soon. Is there anything you want to add to your yard? Just say it, I'll get it back together." Dong Mei quickly shook her head and said with a smile, "The Ho Mansion sent a message that the chief steward has arranged everything. If it is convenient for the fourth lady, just help me bring it back from the Ho Mansion. They are probably all newly made bedding, clothes, shoes, and socks." This is a trivial matter, so Tao Hongying agreed. Just then Ji Yin came from behind supporting Grandma. When she heard this, she said, "Mom, take me with you tomorrow." "Just in time, I'm going to Bianjian and the new shop to have a look. I also want to go to the restaurant to cook 2 dishes for third brother." Tao Hongying subconsciously wanted to refuse, but then remembered that the Wu family had been arrested, and then said, "You can also follow, take all the water, spirit, water, and cloud with you, and never leave your side. Moreover, Mrs. Jia will also go to the banquet with me tomorrow, and she may bring Beizu with her. Why don't you go and sit with Beizu for a while?" "Okay, last time she asked me to exchange for some small pearls, I will get her a box." Ji Yin was so depressed that she couldn't help but be happy as long as she could go out. Everyone laughed when they saw it. That night, it was rare that both Li Zhensheng and Li Laoer came back for dinner and brought back the emperor's oral instructions. Hearing that after General Tang came to Beijing, the family's righteousness could offset the merits and demerits, and he was released from prison, the young and old of the Li family were extremely happy. Although it was expected, everyone felt at ease after receiving the accurate belief. As for those officials who submitted memorials and secretly poked trouble, Li Laoer and the Jiaran brothers naturally planned a counterattack, with Mr. Wen assisting them. It's time to give the younger generation some practice. Early on the next morning, after dinner, Tao Hongying went out with good news. Tao Hongying brought Granny Lin, and Ji Yin brought Shui Ling and Shui Yun, who happened to be in a carriage. As Yeshan drove the car, Muju also jumped on the other side of the carriage and smiled at Yeshan. Yeshan did not chase him away, but whipped his whip and set off. Today is the full moon festival for the eldest grandson of Mrs. Jia's natal family, the Go family. Tao Hongying goes in and out of Jia's house on weekdays, and she gets along well with Mrs. Jia, and there are also boys from the Go family who are marching in the north. So, the Go family sent an invitation to Tao Hongying through Mrs. Jia's hand. Tao Hongying brought a set of silver jewelry. It was not expensive, but the workmanship was very exquisite. It was especially suitable for children to wear. The mother and daughter met Mrs. Jia and Beizu in front of Go's house, and walked to Go's yard. Beizu was so happy to see Ji Yin that she complained softly in Ji Yin's ear, "Last time I went home, my cousin made a severe complaint in front of my mother. My mother punished me by kneeling down for an hour and copying the female precepts every day. Ugh, she didn't even give me snacks. It's going to kill me." Hearing the good news was so funny that he couldn't help but gloat. "Who told you to sneak out?" Fortunately, there were many people there that day. Otherwise, if something happened, your mother would have broken your legs. "Oh, I already knew I was wrong." Beizu was very ashamed and said, "I haven't seen you for a long time, so I shouted out when I was happy, but I won't dare next time. I always envy you for being the princess. Looking at it this way, it's too dangerous for you to be the princess. I don't want to be a girl anymore. I'd better be my mother's daughter. It'll be nice if I can eat snacks and go out to play. Jiyan rolled her eyes and pinched her secretly. Don't say it so disgustingly, as if you can be one if you want. Bezu was pinched and itched his flesh, and he couldn't help but hide and laugh at the same time. The two little girls were smiling like flowers. They walked in from the outside and inevitably attracted the attention of many people. There was a woman who didn't know, so she asked an acquaintance. After getting the answer, her expression became a little complicated. It was a great joy for the Go family to have a new member of their family. Everyone sent congratulatory gifts, talked around the old lady of the Go family, and looked at the baby in the swaddling clothes. They all smiled with joy. Children, new hope in life always makes people easier to feel soft-hearted and generous with their blessings. Soon, the child was carried down. The banquet would not start for a while, so everyone went to hang out in the garden together. The old man of the Go family liked strange stones. He spent a lot of manpower and financial resources to search all over the world and selected the ones he liked best and put them in the garden. Every guest who comes to the door will come to see something novel. I have to say that Mr. Go has an excellent vision. The strange stones in the garden may have strange shapes or rare textures. Some are standing upright and some are lying down, turning the garden into a stone forest. Bezu and Good News walked in front, looking here and there. Shui Ling Shui Yun followed behind, and gradually became a little far away from the others. When the good news came and my mother was missing, I took the pearl and found a place sheltered from the wind and facing the sun to rest and wait. Shui Ling stayed aside, while Shui Yun went to ask for hot tea and warm the hands of his masters. By chance, at this time, someone came nearby and started chatting. A woman with a sharp voice said, "Have you seen Princess Kangal, the one wearing the gold-woven pipa skirt, and her mother, Mrs. Li? Another woman with a deep voice replied, "You saw it, what's wrong?" The Go family and the Geo family are related by marriage, and the Li family has always been close to the Geo family, so it's okay to come over to congratulate them. "Oh, that's not what I said," the sharp-sounding woman said. "I mean, the Li family is really shameless. The boy in their family just killed someone and is still squatting in jail. They don't take it seriously and even come out to drink wedding wine. But that's right, he's a second bedroom boy, not a fourth bedroom boy, so of course they don't care. People say that the brothers of the Li family are harmonious, but I think it's nothing more than that." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 847. Chapter 847. Your natal family must live by the sea. The woman with a deep voice said suddenly, "Yeah, I forgot about it. I heard someone say at the jewelry store the day before yesterday that the boy from the Li family was afraid of having his head beheaded, because he killed the uncle of the country. Although the Wu family has offended the emperor, as long as the queen is not deposed, the emperor will always have some mercy. That's right, the Li family is really too arrogant. A heavy punishment would not be enough to make the people angry. I guess even if they don't behead, one life for one life, they still have to be sentenced to 20 years of hard labor." The woman with a sharp voice, her tone was full of gloating. Hearing the good news, Bezu frowned and Bezu was angry. The two of them stood up and went over to take a look. Shui Ling rolled up his sleeves and was ready to hit someone. But at this time, I heard a familiar voice saying, "Hey, I haven't been out for a few days. I am really ignorant. When did the governor of Jingzayin change to the wife of the Yao family?" Bezu was happy and silently mouthed the good news, "Your mother." Before the good news could be answered, another familiar voice spoke again, "Yeah, I'm wondering about this too. After all, I haven't heard of a substitution. I'm afraid someone is thick-skinned and thinks of himself as a person. Jiyan covered her mouth and smiled, returning the orb. Your mother. Bezu hugged the good news. The two of them snickered and hurried to listen to the play. As expected, the two women earlier were not convinced. The woman with a shrill voice, the daughter-in-law of the Yao family, shouted, "It's so rude of you to eavesdrop on other people's conversations in broad daylight." Tao Hongying showed no sign of weakness and sneered, "You know it's in broad daylight, but you still say bad things behind your back. You really treat this place as your Yao family's Kong. You are still being punished one by one. Do you know which way the gate of Jingzhaoyan opens? It's really windy, so I'm not afraid of flashing my tongue." The woman with a deep voice probably wanted to calm down the matter, so she said, "Mrs. Li Si, we are just discussing the matter. After all, it is a fact that the boy of your Li family killed someone in the street, and we did not frame him for nothing. Humph, don't think that you can pretend to be a good person just because you cut off the head and tail." Mrs. Jia immediately stepped forward and mocked, "The boy from the Li family is in prison, but he is not guilty. How to punish him depends on the emperor, the final word. You, a talkative woman, come here to point out the situation, how to judge the punishment for speaking and not speaking. Who gave you the face? Do your husbands and your mother-in-law know how capable you are? Do you want us to go to your house and ask?" The woman with a deep voice was obviously scared and did not speak any more. But the wife of the Yao family with a sharp voice was still unconvinced and retorted, "Why can't you say it? If your boys dare to kill people, we dare to say it. This is Zindu, and this matter is Zindu's business. What's wrong with us saying a few words?" "Hey, you mean you have to take care of everything in Zindu?" Tao Hongying snorted and said, "Then I have to ask you, does your mother-in-law live by the sea? No wonder you are born. Come down and be lenient. Next time, remember, if someone comes to collect night incense at the back door of your house, you must stop them." The wife of the Yao family with a sharp voice obviously wasn't too smart, so she actually asked, "Why did you stop me?" "Because." Tao Hongying said a few words in a very low voice, and only the wife of the Yao family could hear her clearly. You. Her face turned pale with anger, and she wanted to curse something, but she started retching as soon as she opened her mouth. The woman with the deep voice was frightened and quickly called for help. Everyone did not hear the cause and effect. They only saw the Yao family woman retching. They thought she was pregnant with pearls. She was nearly 40 years old and was about to give birth to another child. Jiyan and Bezu sat next to each other, listening to it from beginning to end, laughing hard. Shui Ling was holding onto the stone, laughing so hard that her stomach ached. "Your mother is so amazing." Bao Zhu held out two thumbs up at Jiyan with admiration in her eyes. Of course she wants to know what the last sentence she didn't hear clearly was. So, she begged Jiyan, "Sister Jiyan, you must know, tell me quickly, what are you doing to stop the person who pours night fragrance? Of course we can't talk about the good news, and Bezu must break the casserole and get to the bottom of it." The two started laughing, and Tao Hongying and Mrs. Jia came over after hearing the news. Bezu shrank his neck, not daring to ask any more questions. "I can't wait to see the good news. After all, my mother's fighting ability is beyond the limit and she doesn't need her protection. It's better to get down to business earlier. The orb naturally has to go in and out together with the good news." They took Shui Ling Shuiyun with them, went out and took the Li family's carriage, and soon arrived at Bianjian. Business in Bianjian is still booming. Recently, 2 new snacks have been added. There is an endless stream of customers in the lobby, and the private rooms on the second floor are also full. Bezu just eats and drinks, as happy as a mouse that fell into a noodle vat. Jiyan went to the bakery, looked through the account books, asked about Peng Chuan's current situation, and then went to the new shop. Gilai and his people have been busy here for 7 or 8 days. Everything that needs to be dismantled has been demolished, and what needs to be built is already under construction. Jian drew a very detailed design, but there were still many discrepancies in the actual implementation. Gilai finally caught his master and solved all the problems. The two of them checked upstairs and downstairs, taking measurements inside and outside the courtyard. They were busy for more than half an hour. Guli put away the drawings with satisfaction, and his curiosity became more and more intense. Although he didn't know much about the princess's growth trajectory, he also knew that the princess had never studied architecture under an apprentice, let alone left the new capital. But it was as if the princess had seen this fruit shop and restaurant with her own eyes. She didn't even know how to implement some arrangements, she just intuitively described what she saw. That feeling is really strange and weird. Jian didn't know that she had added a bit of mystery to Guli's heart. He just hugged his growling stomach, took the orb and got into the car, grabbed a few snacks from her, and then arrived at Cyclamen. There were too many diners coming in and out of the front door, so Yashin stopped the carriage at the back door. Jie Huan was very happy when he heard that his sister was coming. He ran out with a shovel in his hand and said, "Did my sister and Beizu go shopping together? Why are we here together?" Jian quickly said, "No, second brother. We went to Go's house for a banquet. We couldn't bear to stay any longer, so we came out early." After saying that, she asked, "Is the meal for third brother ready?" Jia laughed and said, "It's just one dish away. In fact, most of it is for the jailers." Jia can't eat much. Jian said, "I brought 3 kilograms of spicy dried meat, and I will have someone deliver it to the third brother later." After thinking about it for a while, she added, "The third brother likes to eat my fried eggplant boxes. The second brother will give me a stove, and I will fry a plate for the third brother and send it to him, right?" "Okay, I'll have someone prepare the ingredients, and you put on your apron." Jie Huan didn't stop him, and then returned to the kitchen. Jian and Beizu went to sit in the side room and fried some more eggplant boxes. By the time the guys went to Jingzayin to deliver the meal, Jian and Beizu also had lunch. Yeshan, Muju, Shuiling, and Shui Yun had a separate table next door. Jie Huan ate a few bites with his two sisters, and then went back to work. It's meal time now, it's the busiest time of the day, so there's no time to delay. After dinner, Jian sent the round-bellied orb back to Jia's house, then went to the Marquis mansion to pick up a package for Dongmei, and then left the city to go home. Just after walking 3 or 5 miles, there was a sudden sound of horse hoof beats and billowing smoke at the end of the official road. Shui Ling and Shui Yun were startled and were about to open the window to take a look, but Jian opened the car door happily. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 848. Chapter 848 Killing Pigs and Sheep to Welcome the Heroes. It must be the Northern Expeditionary Army. My father and adoptive father are back. Jian raised his feet and looked around excitedly. Muju heard her joy, thought about it, got up and ran away. After a while, he came back again. Jian looked at him eagerly, with hope in her eyes. This reminded Muju of a deer he saw in the mountains one time. It also had such big eyes and wet eyes, which made people feel weak. He smiled and said, "The princess guessed it right, it is indeed the Northern Expeditionary Army." However, it was General Li Yong who led the 200 advance team, and the Marquis and others are still crossing the river. The good news is not disappointing, as long as everyone in the family returns safely. Earlier or later, it doesn't matter. Sure enough, they waited a little longer and the advance team finally arrived. Li Yong lost a lot of weight, but became more and more brave. His whole body was like a long sword without a sheath, with a rainbow of momentum and sharp edges. When Su saw Jian standing at the shaft of the carriage waving her hands, he grinned, stepped forward and said, "Why are you here, princess?" "Uncle Daong, you are back," Ji-yin smiled happily. I went to the city with my mother for a banquet, and I met you just as I was about to return home. When Daong heard the word go home, his expression became softer and he said, I have to go to the palace to report the news. The princess will go home early and tell Huanayang for me that I will stay at the dock tomorrow. We can go back to the camp at night. Okay, Uncle Daong, don't worry, I'll go home and report the news. Ji-yin smiled and waved his hand, and Li Yong led the advance team to the city. Most of the people in the advance team had been to Broken Gold Beach, and they saluted the good news when they passed by. Ji-yin greeted with a smile, tomorrow we will kill pigs and slaughter sheep in the village. Everyone remember to come back for a celebratory drink. Thank you, Princess. Thank you, Princess, we will definitely go back. The soldiers were smiling and cheering loudly. No matter whether they can have a celebration drink tomorrow or not, these words from the princess will make them feel warm in their hearts. Watching the advance team enter the city, Ji-yin and others quickly returned to Broken Gold Beach. The village chief and Uncle Zhao saw the smoke from a distance and rushed to the second village to look at the official road from a distance. Yashan quickly announced the good news loudly, which made the village chief and others extremely happy. I'm back, I'm finally back, Uncle Zhao clapped his hands, smiling so hard that his eyes were wrinkled. The village chief also yelled excitedly, hurry up and burn the barbecue house. There has been a lot of fine flour harvested in the hot spring valley recently. Let's bake sesame cakes for the boys who are going home. Over there in the pig pen, the big fat pigs are chosen to be hungry for a day, and their intestines will be clean and easy to clean up tomorrow. I remember that both Daong and the fourth general like to eat their fat intestines. Also, hurry up and hurry back to those dozen sheep from the mountain. We'll kill them today and soak them in blood so they can be stewed tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll be killing pigs and sheep all at once, and we'll be too busy. Okay, I'll go catch the sheep. I'm going to the pigsty. Uncle Zhao and others agreed one after another and went about their business happily. The second village was so lively that the women and children wished they could grow wings and fly to the river. Shui Ling ran to Huanayang's house to deliver the message. Ji-yin got off the car and went to Grandma to tell her the good news. As expected, Mrs. Li was also very happy and asked repeatedly, why isn't your mother back? She knows best what your father likes to eat, so she quickly prepared all the food in advance. By the way, there is still wine. Send people to the city quickly to buy wine. I'm afraid I won't be able to get it tomorrow. And the Marquis's mansion is also going to report the news. I'm afraid the chief steward is also looking forward to it. Hands of good news are not blocked, and Grandma is allowed to make arrangements. The old lady has been looking forward to it for more than half a year. Only by becoming so busy can she relieve her anxiety. The new and second villages were so lively that they quickly attracted the attention of De Weishu and De and Zhuang. Jing Glizheng and others came to inquire. They were also very happy when they heard that the Northern Expeditionary Army had returned victoriously. Soon after returning to the village, I organized people and sent a lot of winter vegetables, chickens, ducks, and geese. Especially in the Weisha village, I always remember that the Li family likes to eat big geese. When they first settled in Sujintan, Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying went to the village to change. So, this time Jingli was sending more than 10 at one go. The meat of goose is firm and chewy, much more delicious than chicken or duck. What's more important is that the goose produces a lot of meat, and the meat of one can equal the weight of 3 chickens. Old Mrs. Li didn't refuse, left all the things from the 3 villages, and then invited Jing Lijian and others to come for a celebratory drink tomorrow. When Tao Hongying came back from the city in a hurry, Huanayang and sister-in-law Lu were already rolling up their sleeves and leading the women in the village to boil water and remove the goose feathers. A little maid opened her pockets and smiled while collecting all kinds of fine lint, not wanting to waste any of it. This is also the custom in the village. No matter who eats chicken, duck, or goose, they will save the down. If there were 2 or 3 tails, they were sent to the Li family. Ji-Yun's needlework in the past 2 years has mostly consisted of sewing down pants, down jackets, and even down quilts. The young and old men in the family, from Li Zhensheng to Brother Mao, seem to be wearing thin clothes in winter. In fact, they all have down pants and down vests in their robes. They are not cold at all, and they do not look bulky. It was a down quilt specially made for Mrs. Li, but it was disliked. It is said that covering the body is not as practical as a cotton quilt. Tao Hongying couldn't hide the joy on her face. She entered the room and spoke a few words to the old lady before joining the busy team. As a result, Huanyang said, "Sister-in-law, we can do these tasks. Go and have a look at the baking room. Xiaoqi is leading people to bake sesame cakes. They are not good at it. I heard that a whole plate has been burned." Tao Hongying felt sorry for the food when she heard it, and quickly took her maid Xiaoqing to the second village. Ji-Yun also wants to help, and she even wants to find some delicious food for her father and adoptive father. In the past 2 years, the family has been prosperous, and she no longer needs to subsidize the family privately. Therefore, there are very few rabbits, chickens, ducks, and geese in the space, and there are only 3 or 4 large white pigs. Ji-Yun treats them more as playmates than their food value. Just like the 3 little foxes and the little green snake, they have become an indispensable part of the space. Most of the fields are planted with medicinal materials, and the rest are vegetables and green corn. If you think about it, you can pick more fresh fruits. Prepare more common things like apples, pears, and oranges for the soldiers. The other rare bananas and peaches are for my adoptive father and dad to eat freshly in private. But these are not big jobs, and they will be finished in a short time. So, she became the king of children again as usual, taking over the stars, Yu Yaer, the twins from Hui's family, the naughty boys from Liu's family, and even the infant Yuan Yuan. The backyard immediately became the children's world. Playing football, building snowmen, and skipping ropes all made a lot of noise, and also gave the children and women valuable freedom. Early on the next morning, Mrs. Li rushed to eat quickly, and then the whole family changed into their best clothes, happily got in the car, and headed for the city. The best private room on the second floor of Cyclamen has been vacated, and tea and snacks have been placed, waiting for the masters to arrive. Cyclamen is right next to the main street. It is the only way from the city gate to the palace. It is the best place to wait for the Northern Expeditionary Army to return after victory. The remaining private rooms were also booked at high prices and were crowded with guests, the most numerous of whom were actually women and girls who had not yet left the government. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 849. Chapter 849. Today's women are so unreserved. At 3 o'clock in the morning, cheers gradually came from the city gate. Everyone rushed to the window, stretching their necks and looking into the distance. The streets downstairs were lined with people on both sides, as if the whole city had come out. The Northern Expeditionary Army is mighty. The Marquis is mighty. The hero who killed the barbarians is back. Everyone was excited, their faces were red, they were shouting with their necks stretched out, and they were extremely enthusiastic. The Li family was also excited. Brother Cat almost leaned half of his body out of the window. "Where's my fourth uncle? Why hasn't he come over yet?" Mrs. Li was afraid that her grandson would fall, so she pulled him with one hand and held the window with the other. She looked more worried than surprised. It is a good thing that the Northern Expeditionary Army has high prestige, but it is too grand to be welcomed by thousands of people. Ji-Yun also thought of this and frowned as well, but she didn't want Grandma to worry and whispered, "Nai, my adoptive father is very powerful. He must have a way to deal with it. Before her words could even hit the ground, the people below changed their slogans. Long live the emperor, long live Tianwu. Ji Yin hurriedly looked out, smiling happily, and his worries were gone. It turns out that the Qianbei expeditionary army, full of iron-blooded spirit, came majestically from a distance. Protected by them was a snow-white horse in the middle, and immediately came the emperor wearing a bright yellow dragon robe. The Marquis and Li Laozi were riding black horses, half a horse behind, guarding both sides of the emperor. All the glory of the northern expedition was given to the emperor at this moment, but the real heroes had hidden merit and fame. Facing the people's shouts of "Long live the mountain," the emperor could not help but blush with excitement and nodded with everyone from time to time. The people became more and more excited, and I don't know who took the lead in kneeling down. Long live the emperor! Long live Tianwu! The Northern Expeditionary Army is mighty. The emperor was coaxed to straighten his back and become high-spirited. Mr. Ho and Li Laozi looked at each other with understanding and smile in their eyes. At this time, someone suddenly shouted on the side of the road, "Dad, foster father." The two people quickly turned their heads when they heard the sound, and saw the whole family waving vigorously and shouting at Cyclamen's window. "Fourth, Mr. Ho." "Fourth uncle, Mr. Ho." Master Ho and Li Laozi laughed at that time and waved the riding whips in their hands. Before the Li family could get excited, a woman in the box next to them screamed in surprise. "Ah, look, the Marquis is looking at me, looking at me. Who is that next to him? That general is so majestic. Mother, propose marriage to me, propose marriage to me." "Shut up, you don't want your reputation anymore, keep your voice down." Everyone in the Li family has been dumbfounded. Don't we say that women in the boudoir should be reserved, but with the attitude next door, I'm afraid they will be snatched in the street. Tao Hongying's face turned dark with anger and she rolled up her sleeves. Ji Yin laughed so hard that her stomach hurt, and she quickly stopped her mother and said, "Ha ha, mother, I didn't expect that my father is more popular than my adoptive father. You go home and talk to my dad, tell him to behave well, and be sure to ignore no one, otherwise there are so many women outside, mother, you can't beat them all." "Okay, I'll wait until your father comes home," Tao Hongying said through gritted teeth. It made everyone laugh. Li Laozi, who was riding on horseback, just about to talk to the Marquis, sneezed twice, and the hairs on the back of his neck immediately stood up. He turned around and looked around, wondering where this inexplicable sense of crisis came from. The Marquis asked with concern, "Are you wearing less clothes? Just go home and take a bath in the hot springs." Li Laozi shook his head and said in a low voice, "Master Ho will enter the palace soon, and I won't accompany him. I will go somewhere first." Mr. Ho understood and nodded. When they arrived at the dock last night, they heard all about the family affairs. Ji Yin was assassinated and Ji Yi killed someone in the street. Naturally, they knew about these things. They were away from home and could not take care of their family, which made their family suffer. Both of them were filled with raging anger. However, there is no rush in these matters. They are back, and they have a lot of free time to slowly solve the problem and seek justice piece by piece. The northern expedition was victorious, and the emperor came out of the city to welcome him in person and receive congratulations from all the people. The civil and military officials who were waiting at the entrance of the palace looked really wonderful when they received the news. Some people admired the Marquis for his thoughtfulness, while others secretly cursed him for being treacherous. Of course, those who want to provoke others will be disappointed. Soon, the Northern Expeditionary Army arrived in front of the palace gate, and all the officials knelt down and kowtowed to greet them. The emperor joined hands with Marquis Xinting and entered the palace gate, followed by civil and military officials. With the excuse of changing clothes, they had some free time. Marquis Xinting and the emperor sat in the back hall, drinking tea and chatting. The emperor felt guilty and knew that Zinda could not hide what happened for more than half a year, so he spoke first. Cousin, did you just see Funiur and the others on the roadside? The Marquis nodded and said, I see, Funiur got fat no matter what she ate when she was little. Now that she is a grown-up girl, she is getting thinner and thinner. The emperor coughed dryly and said, it was my negligence that caused this child to be wronged and frightened. The Marquis frowned and replied, Your Majesty is serious, that incident was an accident. No one could have imagined that the Queen and the Wu family would listen to such outrageous rumors. The emperor felt better. Thinking of the Queen and the Wu family, his face darkened again. The Wu family is really stupid. They can't even see such an obvious trap. I have already started to investigate the person behind it. I just got some clues, but the Queen cannot be eliminated for the time being. The Marquis glanced in the direction of Shaokong Palace and asked, but whose handiwork is it? The emperor snorted coldly, with a stern look in his eyes, and lowered his voice, who else can tamper with the palace except that one? Similarly, we can't touch her for the time being, but we can't keep those idiots outside who are cheating on us. Let's kill the chicken to scare the monkeys and give that old poisonous woman a warning. The Marquis bowed his hands and saluted, Your Majesty, that was enough before, but now that I am back, if there is any need, Your Majesty, please feel free to send me. The emperor smiled and nodded, my cousin is my source of strength, but since my cousin has just come back, I'd better rest for a while and don't worry about anything else. After saying that, he stood up first and said, let's go, the civil and military officials are still waiting in front. The Marquis followed, with Manager Yi waiting on his side with a smile, and quickly went to the front. Let's not talk about how happy the court was because of the victory of the Northern Expeditionary Army. I just said that in front of the side door of Jingzhaoyin Yamen, 2 officers were leaning against the wall and yawning out of boredom. One Su lost money in gambling last night and was a little listless, cursing and saying, I've really stepped on recently, I'm so unlucky. That die seems to have eyes wide open and is specifically working against me. When I shout loudly, it will become smaller. I am so angry that I want to overturn the table. His companions laughed, gloated, and said, just marry Dice home. As your wife, she will naturally be obedient. What a fart, you just married a Dice and went home, the officer who lost the bet laughed and scolded, and the 2 of them started to quarrel. At this moment, a dozen fast horses suddenly came running from a distance. Suddenly a general was wearing a helmet. He was tall and majestic, which aroused the awe of passers-by and quickly gave way. The 2 officers were extremely envious. Although they are equipped with swords and are considered public officials, when they go out, everyone calls them mangy dogs. Don't talk about being so majestic, everyone respects you, it's good if you don't spit on them behind your back. The 2 of them were muttering to themselves, but they didn't expect the team of people to stop in front of the door. The general immediately jumped off his horse and strode over. Hey guys, there will be 2 updates today and 4 updates tomorrow. The reason is simple, ZD is quarantined for 5 days. I almost took my children to the gathering, but luckily in the end I just put a seal on the door. In this extraordinary period, my dear children, safety comes first. Go out less and gather less. It's also great to stay at home and read books and watch TV shows. Pen refills. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 850. Chapter 850 The Main Branches of the Tree. The 2 officers were startled and straightened their backs subconsciously. One of them raised his hands in salute and asked, General, I wonder what you do for a living. Needless to say, this general is Li Laosi. He returned the greeting with his hands raised, and the armor leaves on his body rustled. There seemed to be an invisible iron-blooded murderous aura permeating the air, which made the 2 guards become more respectful and avoidable. Thank you for your hard work, Brothers. My general's nephew is in prison. I want to visit him. I wonder if you can be accommodating. Li Laozi was very polite, and the soldiers behind him immediately stepped forward and stuffed a piece of silver into each of the two officers. The two officers were holding the money, but they wanted to take it but did not dare to take it. One of the officers asked, "Who does the general want to visit? We need to report it to the prison boss." Li Laozi said, "My nephew's name is Li Jiyi." Ah, it turns out to be General Li Si. The Northern Expeditionary Army, General Li Si, who has just returned from victory. The two officers were all bright-eyed and hurriedly took out the money. One led Li Laozi to walk slowly, while the other rushed forward to report the news. Li Laozi's personal soldiers, two of them followed the courtyard, and the rest were guarding the door, serving as servants for the two officers. It happened that the prison boss had something to do and went out. The first officer couldn't find anyone for a while, so he gritted his teeth and said a few words to his brothers, then went directly to the prison to meet Li Laozi. "General Li Si, General Li is in the innermost prison. Just go there." A guard bowed and made a flattering gesture. Li Laozi nodded to thank him and winked at the soldiers. The two soldiers immediately started talking to the officers. Because of their errands, the guards didn't go to see the fun just now, they were just curious. Soon, the two parties were talking and laughing. Jiyi stayed with the rotten grass spirit for several days. Eating and drinking together, sleeping together, and fighting together, we have found out the details of this cohabitation partner. He is a charlatan whose brain has been damaged. It is said that he was thrown in because he was stupid and couldn't find a home. He stole chickens in the north of the city and accidentally hurt the owner's house. He had no money to compensate. Jiyi felt a little pity for his uncle when he thought of his uncle who had left home and could not return. At this moment, he was secretly shaving the head of the rotten grass spirit with a dagger. I didn't expect that. I had just finished shaving, and when I turned around, I saw my fourth uncle standing outside the door. Uncle 4, Jiyi jumped up and shouted in surprise. Li Laozi looked his nephew up and down. I haven't seen him for more than 2 years. The former naughty boy has now taken on the appearance of a man. He is tall and full of energy. Perhaps he has been here for a few days. He eats and drinks well, his face is glowing, and he does not appear to be suffering at all. He was relieved, reached into the fence, patted his nephew heavily on the shoulder, and said teasingly, "You kid, you have made the family angry this time. Wait until you get out, and your grandma will hit you with a pipe and a pot." Jiyi wanted to pull his fourth uncle to sit down, but when he was halfway squatting, he realized that this place was a prison and the ground was dirty and damp. But Li Laozi didn't mind. He pulled him and sat him down, then took off a sheepskin wine bag from his waist and pulled out the stopper. He took a sip and handed it to Jiyi. Jiyi was so happy that he quickly took a sip. Finally, he sighed happily and complained, "Everything about the food sent from home is good, but there is no wine. I'm starving to death." Li Laozi rolled his eyes at him and cursed, "You dare to drink in this place, you will die." Jiyi chuckled and whispered, "Don't worry, fourth uncle, I'm always on guard. Lao Huang and I took turns keeping vigil, and my sister also brought me a lot of things. Even if something happens, I won't suffer." After saying that, he pointed at the bald rotten grass spirit and said, "This is Lao Huang. There is something wrong with his brain. He can't speak a few words, but his skills are really good. He fights with me every day, haha." Lao Huang was looking longingly at the wine bag in Jiyi's hand. When he saw him turning around, he reached out his hand, quickly snatched the wine bag away, and drank. Jiyi hurriedly grabbed it back and finally got it. Half of the drink was gone. He was so angry that he gave Lao Huang a kick. Lao Huang was not annoyed either. He lay on the ground with his arms as pillow, feeling comfortable after reminiscing. Li Laozi looked funny. My nephew is really big-hearted. He can still make friends after being in prison. You should tell me about it when you get home, so that I won't worry about it. Ji was afraid that he would be robbed of the wine bag again, so he quickly drank the rest, wiped his mouth, and then said, "Fourth uncle, don't worry. I killed that boy from the Wu family after careful consideration, not recklessly. Once the Wu family plotted against Fu Niuer, our Li family only went to the emperor to complain, which was not enough to deter anyone who was interested. I killed the boy from the Wu family, the so-called Uncle Guo, in the street, so others would be afraid. After all, we in the Li family had a stupid young man who even the Uncle Guo would dare to kill." Secondly, before Ji could continue, Li Laozi had already taken over. "Secondly, I have made meritorious service in Jiangbei, and you have also made meritorious service in Heilan army. We have two heroes in one profession, plus the Marquis. You are afraid of being jealous of him, so you plan to use this incident to offset the merit and let the family take a step back, right?" Ji laughed dryly and scratched his messy hair. "That's not entirely the case. I'm afraid that he will leave me in Kyoto after being jealous. I still want to go back and kill the Japanese pirates. It doesn't matter whether you are a general or a soldier, as long as you can kill the Japanese pirates. Fourth uncle, you don't know, the Japanese pirates are even more hateful than the barbarians. The Japanese pirates were cruel and cunning, and destroyed many people's homes in Quanzhou. It was a feud. Even the two boats my uncle left in Quanzhou were almost snatched away by Japanese pirates. I vow to quell the Japanese pirates and completely restore peace to the people of Quanzhou." He looked a little excited, and then said after a while, 11 GEER and GEER haven't come back yet. I will always stay at the beach to pick them up for my family." Thinking of his son and nephew who were wandering somewhere, Li Laozi's eyes darkened, but he quickly covered up the past. He nodded, looked at his nephew and said, "I won't say thank you to my family. First of all, this boy from the Wu family killed well. Thinking about Fu Niuer being wronged and me, the father, not being here, I can't wait to chop the whole Wu family into pieces. Secondly, this time the northern expedition has advanced 300 miles further than before. Next year we will be able to completely drive the barbarians back to the grassland and regain the rivers and mountains in one go. When the time comes, I will retire from the army and go home to be filial to your grandma, or go out to find brother 11 and brotherin. You just go ahead and kill the Japanese pirates. No matter how great your contribution is, it is the glory of your family. In addition, I will discuss with your uncle and your father to slowly move part of the family's property to the south as a retreat." Ji frowned and subconsciously looked in the direction of the palace. Li Laozi patted his nephew and said, "Don't worry, it will be fine for the time being, but things are unpredictable and people's hearts are changeable. It is always right for us to be more prepared. And the tree has big branches, so the 4 rooms of our Li family cannot always be together." End of this chapter.